Hi everyone, welcome to Van Roon Martial Arts once again. Thank you for tuning in. Today I'm going to be talking about how to use a universal chamber to execute your kicks, in this case, off of your lead leg. So what do I mean by a universal chamber? Well, look, if I wanted, I could throw a turning kick and I could bring it around on an angle out here. And whenever I throw a hooking kick or a hook kick, I could bring it around from outside in a big circle this way. When I throw a side kick, I could chamber it back over here and then drive it out. The thing about that is, of course, it indicates to your opponent before you make contact or before you try to deliver the technique as to what's going to come next. And our opponent, of course, has a vested interest in knowing what technique we want to use. So we want to have the ability to be able to hide our intention so the opponent can't read into that and therefore counter effectively. So that's where the universal chamber comes in. Universal chamber is a technique that we first practice from side on. There's many different ways to do this, but this is how I like to teach my students. So I'm going to stand side on and I'm going to have my feet around about shoulder width apart. So for those of you that practice ITF Taekwondo, we'd call this a parallel stance. There's many similar stances in different martial arts. So we're going to stand side on like this, feet about shoulder width apart, but I'm just going to bring my weight to my back foot, okay? Bring my weight to my back foot. Now, I'm going to have my lead foot just touching the ground softly. So about 95% of my weight is going to be on my back foot. Okay, I'm going to bring my hands up, and now from here, I'm going to lift my chamber, and I'm going to put it into position, which I call the universal chamber. Let's have a look. Now, do you notice that my foot sword is between me and the opponent? I don't have my knee up like this because then it's not a threat unless I'm going to kick below the belt. In the case of sport Taekwondo, rather than the martial arts side of things, all the kicks that are scoring need to be above the belt. So we need to make sure that we get that foot sword, or that blade of the foot, as it's sometimes called in other martial arts, above the belt. Let's have a look one more time. So this way. Do you notice I don't have it over this side here, and I also don't have it too far over here? Much like a good boxer's jab, I want to control the center line. You see that in a bunch of different martial arts. In boxing, you see the person keep their jab down the center, rather than like this, so they can't shoot straight up the middle. In point fighting or karate, you'll see the person have their hands this way. So once again, they're defending the center line. In Wing Chun, they'll defend the center line. Center line theory is essential for all different types of martial arts, and not just striking ones, also with grappling. So the center line is what we want to really protect. So we're going to lift that universal chamber up, and we're going to explore which kicks can be thrown from there. So today, I'll be giving you a basic sequence of 4 different kicks that you can throw from the universal chamber. There's more, and we can explore those a little bit too, but this is a good sort of a starting point. So I'm standing side on this way, and I'm going to lift up my universal chamber toward the target. I'm going to keep it between me and the target, and from here I can extend, for example, a side piercing kick, side kick. So let's have a look at that again. If you notice, I'm not twisting my body like this, which is a really common mistake. I'm not turning it into a back kick, because that will make it very difficult for me to be able to follow up with another technique afterwards. I want to keep my posture straight, narrow my waist, tuck in my pelvis so it's in a neutral position. I'm not like this way with my butt sticking out. I've tucked it in, neutral. My spine is tall, and then I lift using the side of my body. I tense the side of my body and maintain the posture upright, and I lift my leg to my body. Let's have a look. This way. I put the side piercing kick out, and then if I wanted to, I could bring it down and I could easily follow up with something else afterwards. So that's the universal chamber, and what you do is you teach your opponent to respond to that. So every time I put my side kick out, I draw a response. That action draws a particular response. So his hands might drop, he might slide back, etc. Let's assume that the opponent stays within range. When I bring up my universal chamber this way, he's got 2 arms, but he's got, as a starting point, let's classify them into 4 quarters. If we go down the middle of his body, and we go through the middle of the body that way, like a cross, we could say upper left-hand side, lower left-hand side, upper right-hand side, and lower right-hand side. Now he's got 2 arms, like I said, but he's got 4 quarters to cover. Now, you could say, oh, but he can just cover like this. Unfortunate thing about the human body and arms is it can't quite cover low enough to protect everything above the belt. So if I drop my elbows to my hips, even if I really try to crunch, there's a bit of a gap up the top here. Now, if we're talking about a full contact fighting sport, you might say, oh yeah, but that's not going to be too exposed, it's not going to be a really telling shot. Now for that side, I kind of agree, but for point scoring, you're still exposed. There's various ways to cover, including like using a Philly shell, or possibly a guard where you use like a point fighter guard like this. You see it a lot in point fighting or sport karate, but that's another conversation. So basically, let's agree, it's going to be difficult for him to react to all 4 quarters without exposing one or another. So if I used 4 kicks that correspond to those quarters, let's call them A, B, C, and D. This is the way that I teach it here at Van Roon Martial Arts. So A is a side kick. We're coming this way. A. B is a turning kick to the body. C is a hook kick, or we sometimes call it reverse hook and kick, which is its long name. So coming this way. And D is a high turning kick. Okay, so let's have a look at those 4 kicks again. A, B, C, and D. Now what you might notice is my chamber always comes up through the central position here. So instead of doing A, B, C, D now, I'm just going to throw one kick or another and see if you can anticipate which kick it is. Normally you'll be able to tell, but it will be during the kick, once it's actually getting executed, that you'll realize, often too late. So it makes it quite difficult for the opponent to be able to stick with you and read your techniques. So that's a universal chamber, folks. A couple of other things that are really, really important with the use of that universal chamber is your alignment and your extension. So when I use this type of kicking, I want to make sure that I have sufficient distance. Because if I try to use my universal chamber from close range, where the person can punch me, or where they can throw turning kicks or roundhouse kicks, it won't be effective. It's a bit like a boxer's jab. In boxing, if I'm in closer range like this, and my opponent is using, like say, rips or hooks or uppercuts through the center, from that closer range, it's going to be very difficult to get my jab out, because my arm is bent, so I can't create a frame. From this distance, on the other hand, when I'm jabbing, it's very difficult for a person who's throwing hooks and uppercuts to bridge the gap. So each technique has a strong distance, and the universal chamber isn't as effective if I do it from here, because I can't create a frame with my leg. Everything's a bit jammed up. It's better for me to use my hands or a different type of kick. So whenever you use your universal chamber, make sure you have sufficient distance between you and opponent. If you want to take it a step further, what I'd encourage you to do is learn how to lift and shift. That will be the topic of another video coming soon, which you can tune into. But to give you an idea of what that's about, it's basically lifting your foot first and then shifting in, rather than stepping up. So it would look like this. If I did A and B, I'm lifting and then I shift in. C, and finally D. That's lift and shift, A, B, C, D. That's covering a little bit of distance rather than just staying on the spot, and that would be the next level that you go up once you learn how to maintain your universal chamber between you and the opponent. Once you've got the hang of the A, B, C, and D, kicking through that universal chamber, you can combine different types of kicks. So for example, to occupy one of your opponent's arms, you could start with a B, or turning it to the body, and follow it with a head kick. It's a very simple combination, but you must master the use of the universal chamber to maintain control in that position. So you're going to come here and then here, right? This way. Another option would be to do a C and then a D. In this case, I'll go past and over his head as though he's dodged it, and then I'll kick back towards his face. Once again, I'm coming up like this, so it's very difficult for him to be able to tell whether I'm going to kick here or whether I'm going to kick here. See, look. Or this way. This is the art of the universal chamber, and it's something that's employed very effectively by fighters in styles like ITF Taekwondo, Olympic style Taekwondo, or within the World Taekwondo Federation, and in arts like sport karate or point fighting. Thank you very much for tuning in today, everybody. That was today's video on the universal chamber. If you'd like to learn more, please don't forget to subscribe to Van Roon Martial Arts here on YouTube, and definitely let me know what you thought of today's video. Thank you very much.